Welcome to In the Beginning. In the Beginning was the word, and this is your spoken word podcast. I am your host, Tasha Jones, and today we have with us Harlem's finest, Brittany Barker. What's going on, Brittany?
Hey everybody, I'm feeling good, feeling good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for being on.
Of
Um,
course.
I am a huge fan of your work. I am, just let me start by saying that. I'm a huge fan of your work. I love what you're doing, not only with your poetry, but what you're doing in the community. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. But let me ask you one question. Like, what drew you to poetry?
Ooh, it happened across a series of time. So I grew up in a very rhythmic household. My dad did in our living room. My sister, she always had a tape recorder and a notebook. And I just used to hear rhythms and words all throughout my childhood. And all of a sudden, I remember having a notebook when I was in
Nice.
sixth grade, and it was full of poems. And I didn't really know what it was that I was doing, why I was
Yeah.
writing, but I just knew I wanted to have my own set of words. And that's how it came about. So, sixth grade, I had a poetry notebook. And then in high school, I luckily had some creative mentors. I was a part of a writing program that took me to this poetry slam at the Apollo, and that's where it took off.
Nice. Yeah. The Apollo was right. There's a couple of poets who performed there, Jessica Care Moore, Allison Horton, who performed there and just really kind of blew up. And so for you, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah, it was so inspiring because I was probably about 13 or 14, and I just remember showing up and just being amazed that not only were people my age talking and writing, but they were moving with so much passion and freedom and expressing their emotions in a way that I felt very aligned to. So that really pushed me to take poetry seriously. I also had an English teacher too who used to have this underground performance space after school for the students, and he would always invite me to perform. And so it was all those little experiences that really built my confidence and my self definition as a poet and a writer.
That. I mean, pew, 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 pew for the teachers, right? One shot for the teachers who's
Exactly.
always creating space and making space for students' voices to be heard. I really appreciate that thought process. Let me, before I ask you about education, you think being in Harlem and your father, your sister, and having that rhythmic music, that feeling, do you think that kind of shaped your poetry? Or do you feel like the things that you named was really the shape of what drove your pen to go this way?
It was definitely a mix of both. Harlem is so integral to just my aura and my exterior. I feel like Harlem just has such a cool confidence. As you know, it's the mecca for the Renaissance. So many writers and giant thinkers, trailblazers came through Harlem or came to spend time here. And it's for a reason. I don't know what was going on back then during that time, but I do think about the people who spent time here. From Langston Hughes to Tiana Taylor, we got Dapper Dan, we got
Come on.
Dipset,
Yeah.
Cameron.
Come
Like,
on, come on.
this is a group of people or just a neighborhood of people who make an impact without doing too much, not too boastful. And I think that cool confidence and that demeanor really comes off in my poetry. And it's also the way that I share space with people. You could be impactful, but you don't have to do too much or take up too much space. Definitely
Yeah.
got that from Harlem.
Yeah. I love that. Where you just you get into your lane and whatever lane it is in, you show up and you show up with the confidence that you need, right? And exude. And it's not over the top, but it's not under either, right? Yeah, I love Harlem. I was talking to you a little bit before, and the last poet, Abiel Doom, he used to open up his house on Sundays, 110 Morningside. I still remember the address, right? 110 Morningside, and all the poets would just go over there and break bread and eat and listen to poetry. And for me, when people said they was from Harlem, I think people around the world, especially during the Harlem Renaissance, um, and that era after the 50s and 60s and 70s, people kind of stood up different when you said you was from Harlem, right? They looked at you different, right? They knew that you knew who you were. and it wasn't one of those things that you were teetering back and forth, like you was very strong and stout in your being, and I appreciate that. I get that cool confidence in your work, right? Like it is definitely there.
Thank you.
Yeah. How extensive has your education played a role into how you approach poetry, or how you um, shape your words, and how you even put it back out there?
Yeah. I'm thinking about what you said about, showing up to the last Poets House. And I've never been, but I used to hear about it. And I imagine that it was such a communal space where people got together to just have conversation. And I feel like that's the best kind of learning. And that's something that I've learned as an educator. I worked with, when I started teaching, I was teaching 10th grade English in Brooklyn. And, some people hate literature, because of the way that it's presented to them. Students grow up hating literature sometimes. But what I've learned is that the students don't like when you talk at them. They really like when you speak with them. And so they taught me that learning is a conversation. And in order to have that conversation, I have to build some level of trust and I have to use an intimate approach. And that's the energy that I bring to the stage. Because I feel like when I go to speak my poetry, it's not me performing and you listening. It's sort of like us doing that work together. And that's definitely a skill that I picked up in the classroom. I wrote this poem last month, and the line was, "When I spit, it never feels like a performance. It be a reckoning. It feels like you listen close, you hear the metaphor rumble." It's not about me speaking to you, but it's about how we can start this conversation and how I can invite you into, my world or the world that we should be prying apart together.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. As two things that you said in there that I really want to unfurl. One is that as an educator, you are not afraid to listen to your students, right? And I think so many times people who are in authority feel like they have the final word. And maybe that is, they do have the final word, but it is a conversation. And in order for students to learn from you, right? They have to be open to engage, and you were willing enough to say, okay, how can we make this work? And I appreciate that coming from a education background. So that's one, kudos for that. Um, Second, the way your words just roll off your tongue like that, it do feel like a conversation. And it's just beautiful, right? It almost sounds like music in that thought process. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. And I love it. And I love that idea of a conversation. And Abiel Dune's house is he still meets with poets now, and it's virtually, but every other Sunday is, people from all over the country stop by. And that was a whole nother thing too, where you can be in a room and it will be, Asia, it will be Georgia Me, it will be, Black Ice, Tasha Jones, it will be everybody from all different areas, right? Like it is beautiful in the thought process.
That's amazing. I actually have a colleague. She runs a workshop space out of Langston Hughes's house, and
Mm,
she recently invited, I think, some members from the Last Poets. I can't remember which poet, but I still see them in community with the younger writers too, which I love. And it says a lot about how much they care about the craft. So I can't
yeah.
even imagine. I wish I was there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna connect you with some stuff too because they're doing an anthology, and so I'm going to ask for permission first, and then connect and see, how how that can work. Maybe just do some introductions and go from there.
Okay. Thank you.
Um, no, thank you. Um, we know that you were in the classroom and you're still educating, but not necessarily in the classroom. Can you tell me what in today's environment? Um, what do you think? Does it make you want to go back into the classroom for that because we are in the space that we're in right now, or do you do you feel more prone to say, nope, I have to do now Creative Soul House because it's even more important to do that work. I'm just kind of get a feel for, you know, that thought process of uh,
Yeah.
making sure that our kids get what they need.
That's such a good question because as I had transitioned out of the classroom, I had that struggle of if I'm not on the front line, right in front of the students, on the day to day, then I'm unsure of how big of an impact that I could make with them. So it's
Mm,
something that I grapple with a lot when I was transitioning out of the classroom into school leadership and then later into entrepreneurship as, the founder of Creative Soul House. I think that the work can happen in multiple places.
mm,
I think that once you leave the classroom, it's really hard to access students. So, for example, like something that I've run into as a business owner who's trying to bring those programs back to students is I need permission from the school. And if a school doesn't have the budget or funding, or if they don't think that these kind of enrichment opportunities are important for the students, then it's hard for me to really get in front of the children
mhm, mhm,
unless they have parents who will allow them to spend time in workshops or social events that I host around the city. So that's kind of been a struggle, and it's something that I've been working through as an entrepreneur. How do I get back in front of the people who are the most vulnerable? And I'm still
mhm.
figuring it out at this moment.
I love that. So if you guys are listening in and you want to tell us, some ways to figure that out, we are accepting that, right? Like, so if you guys are listening in, make sure, add comments, send her a message to say, hey, if this works, this could possibly work, or tell her where some funding is. So everybody in the listening audience, make sure you do that. Tell us a little bit more about Creative Soul House.
Well, Creative Soul House serves people from like 11 and up. So it's an intergenerational space, and we really target people who are overworked and underserved, and we want to create
Mm,
spaces where those people feel poured into. So in any workshop or social event or program that I bring into a school, or organization, or a company, I'm always thinking of some kind of experience that can help people unwind or to talk about complex things that are affecting their lives. Because one of our models is that when we can transform ourselves, then we can better transform our communities. And we hear this in every culture: you can't pour from an empty glass, right? Or on an airplane, you can't help anyone if you don't put your oxygen mask on first. So we're creating spaces where people can feel fed and where people can feel poured into so that they can then make effective change in their neighborhoods.
mm, mm, mm.
So
I
that's like
love that.
crux of our work. But we get really creative and we do a bunch of things at Creative Soul House.
Yeah, I love it. I love it too that you didn't that is not single lane, right? Like it's a creative soul house, and right, and creativity can span poetry, it can expand, right? Uh Other things. And so I love the fact that it's inclusive of that. Um yeah, all of creativity and not just for portion. Yeah.
Poetry lives
Your
everywhere.
poetry I'm sorry.
No, I just said poetry lives everywhere. And
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
happy when there's space for it to live in everything.
okay, now let's talk about that. Where do you want to see not only your poetry but poetry period? Like where do you want to see it?
I
Where does
specifically,
it belong?
um, I really want to see more poetry in film,
Mm,
and not as a complementary or supplementary
come
aspect of
on.
a film, but I want to see it be like the crux and the foundation of a film.
Mm,
So I've been experimenting with like short films for the past 6 years on and off. I am not trained, I'm self taught. And I've created some experimental shorts that use poetry to talk about or answer big questions
mhm.
that we think about as human beings. And one was selected at in 2023 at the Black Femme Supremacy Film
Nice.
Festival, and I just got commissioned to create an eco poetry film for a New York-based company. So I'm interested in poetry living in film and just in different spaces because I think too, some people believe that poetry is Shakespeare and some incomprehensible language on a page that is intended to block you out. But I believe that poetry is a hand extended, or it's a bridge built for you to, for us to make some kind of connection. And I think that film is one of those ways that we can invite people into seeing the beauty and the absolute power of the craft of poetry.
Love that. I love that. I love that. Love that. Congratulations in regards to the upcoming, right?
Yeah.
But I love this metaphor of the hand extended, right? Poetry is that the extended hand.
Hmm.
Um, that's what very well said. Very well said. Your poetry touches themes like identity and community. And in film, do you feel like you can translate that the way that you do on the stage?
You're saying, do I believe that I could translate my identity on stage?
No, not on stage, on film, the way you do on stage.
Oh, I believe so. Yeah, I believe that film gives me a little bit more control. I have
Hmm.
this thing that I'm working on in terms of control, because sometimes I struggle with like sharing my emotions or feeling my emotions in front of people. And when I could experiment with film, you could say cut, try it again, do it
Yeah.
better. Look at yourself and you can make those changes before it even meets other people's eyes. So, um, yeah, it's complex, but I do think that I'm able to play around and show a different part of me on film.
That.
Hmm.
I like that too. Sometimes I ask that question because for me, I love being on the stage, right? Like I could see my work. I just finished a theater piece, 4 nights in a row, and I could see myself doing stage work, like being Broadway or something like that, right? Like I could see it that way.
Yeah.
I felt how I trained my body different for those shows, and I definitely think that I can um, express myself in film or television or anywhere else, but for something about that stage for me, it just takes me to a whole nother space, right? It just feels like home. And so I asked that question to 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 see if that is where your happy space is in that film arena, or if it's on the stage.
I'm still exploring it. I find happiness in many different arenas. I find a lot of happiness just in the private space of writing the poem. I
Yeah.
love feeling the translation or the transmutation of the emotions on stage. And then I love the way that I could like twist and bend it in film. The stage, though, it's interesting that you brought up theater. But I have so much respect for people who can get on stage and operate in different characters and surrender to what the stage calls you to do. I think that is so performance is so humbling. And for me, it pushes me to publicly step into my feelings and to invite the audience to feel that with me. And that's very scary. And that's why it's humbling, because I'm like, God, I don't know what's about to come. I don't know what emotions are about to come out on stage. But I do
Mm,
know that it's a place that teaches me about how little control that I have. And something that learning I've been learning in the past few months is just you got to get out the way, Brittany. You really want
excuse me.
poetry and the stage to do its thing and to do what it's meant to do. You have to stop fighting what the poem is trying to do with your body.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Of that thought process of saying you're not in control.
Hmm.
You have to get out of the way.
Yeah.
And are you that way? Excuse me. Um,
Take your time.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Are you that way with writing your work too? do you allow yourself to move over and allow the work to just channel through you? Or,
Um,
uh,
no, you finish the question. Sorry.
no, like, I guess I'm more so asking, like, walk us through the process of crafting the poem. Are you that, are you that way too when you're crafting the work? Are you allowing yourself to get out of your way?
Yeah.
Craft the work as well.
I'm more so allow myself to get out the way when I'm writing because the writing is private and the writing nobody's looking at me, watching me, sizing me up, perceiving me. So I'm more willing to surrender to whatever happens. And I would say in comparison to performing on stage, that's where I struggle. So yeah, this is advice from my future self that's really pushing to um, surrender and to lose control on stage, to let God or the Holy Spirit to use me. This is advice for that Brittany that I aspire to be. So I fight with control when I'm performing, but when I'm writing, I'm more so open and vulnerable.
Right. I love the way you think that that's that thought process of saying I am getting to that space and I'm saying this to my future self.
Yeah,
Um, that's a whole nother dimension, right? Like to be like, I know I'm going to get there and I'm going to speak it into existence. And when we catch up, right, it's going to be
yeah.
what I need it to be. I
Because
love
there's
that.
things that we know, we feel like we know who God wants us to be, but then
Come
there's
on.
always things in the way. I can only speak for myself. I know exactly the feeling of when I will arrive at the place where God wants me to be. But I just have those human emotions. I have doubt, I have insecurities, I have fears. Um, and walking with God is about, walking by faith, things that you cannot see. Sometimes you have to take a step forward and you might not know what is next or what's at the bottom, if there is a bottom. And it's something that I've learning. Like writing has specifically taught me how to trust that and how to lean on God more. Yeah.
I love that. That's interesting that you say the writing has taught you how to lean into that more. Um, I would think in my mind it would probably be not only writing but stepping out on faith to pursue Creative Soul House. Did that
Yeah.
help deepen the thought process of saying this is what I have to do and this is now and I'm just going to trust you.
For sure. If there's anything that taught me about walking on faith, it was quitting my job and becoming an entrepreneur. It is not for the weak. I'm telling you, it's not for the weak. And I just, yeah, I had to, it was mindset number one because the way that I was used to living, like the checks that I was used to bringing in, like the consistency, the lifestyle that I was used to having, which wasn't anything grand, but it was comfort. Um, that I had to give that up. I had to switch that and trust that provision provision will still come.
That's
And
right.
provision looks different in different seasons of your life. So while I might have been receiving a check every 2 weeks and I could go on this vacation and all those things, provision in this season of my life as an entrepreneur has been through like the growth in community and like the trust in self and my relationship with God. Like that's provision. I've still been able to pay my bills. I'm able to impress upon people in ways that I wouldn't have been able to when I was working my regular job. So it's definitely been a faith walk, and I'm still being worked on as we speak.
We
Still being,
all are.
yeah,
We all are for sure. Um, I'm actually being inspired in regards to that thought process of saying, um, what does provision look like? And just the way you said that I'm still being provided for in other ways. And I see that and I acknowledge that and I'm grateful for that. That's a whole nother step within itself. And I appreciate you naming that and speaking it out. And I think a lot of us who are on these journeys where we're doing our craft and our art full time, it is it can be like, what am I doing? Right. But at the same time, it could be like I couldn't do anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what we have to pay attention to, like what feels best in your spirit,
Mm,
because you can have all the things that you think is provision or that you think is like abundance or whatever.
hmm.
You can have all those things and it does not sit right with you, or you're not doing what you know you're supposed to be doing. If you put that alongside, I mean, if you juxtapose that to a moment where you think there's lack, um, but you feel good inside. I don't know. It's just interesting things that you learn as you grow and experience.
Yeah, I love it. Um, Now, how do you navigate being at the intersection between being a poet, an educator, and a creative? Do these roles, individual roles, do they complement each other? Do they fight against each other sometimes? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. Well, luckily, at this moment of my life, there's space for all of those parts of my identity to work together. I'm so happy about, because it wasn't always like that. At the
Yeah,
core, I'm very imaginative. I'm daydreamy. Like I love freedom. I don't like rules and,
come on.
someone set fine parameters around me. So I mean, when I started off teaching, I was a 10th grade English teacher at a charter school. It was very rigid. And anytime I tried to like change the curriculum or make it a little bit more like responsive to the demographic of students I was teaching, I would get written up. So I
Mm-mm.
had like a team lead or a coach, and he would say, "Hey, that's not in the plan." And I would be like, "Well, yeah, but I thought that this was like a great pathway to teach toward the same objective."
Exactly.
And your girl was getting in trouble. And each job,
Interesting.
it was very interesting. But each job, I got more and more freedom. So my next job was as arts activism teacher. So I was more in the electives department where I could build the curriculum from
Nice,
scratch. And I was like, ooh, yeah. And then I pitched the after school program at that school. And then all of a sudden, I was asked to be like a program director. And so
nice,
all of these different steps, at first I would complain because they felt limiting, and sometimes they were burdensome because I had to do things on my own. I was asked to do these big things but not really have a team around me. So I would complain, but what I've noticed is that with each step came more freedom. And with the increased responsibility, I built all of these skills that I've been able to bring into my life and my practice right now as a poet,
nice.
as an educator, and as a creative director. So if I didn't have those limiting experiences, I wouldn't know how to navigate all of these different parts of me. And I wouldn't also appreciate the freedom to have them all work together at this moment in my life. I hope it's this way.
No, ain't that funny how it works, right? Like we think, and I think I want to say, ain't that funny how God works, where we are combating and fighting against what's hard and what's difficult, but it's setting us
Mhm.
up for what is to come, right? And so those skills that you gain, it's interesting that your 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 teacher, your instructor, I don't know, like DCI, Dean of Curriculum and Instruction, I don't know.
Yeah.
But he had a problem with the way you onboarded and exited, right? Like I think I would always give a teacher a freedom to onboard the way that they need to onboard to their demographic and exit the the teaching unit or the skills that need to be taught the way that they need to do that, because every student is different and every classroom is different, right? And so you should have had that freedom to do that. But it might have been solely because you needed those skills for what was to come, right? So that friction might have been solely because of what you needed in the future. And it's amazing to me how God works, because it's always ahead of the game. It's always looking forward to the future. It's always putting you in the best for the future. Yeah.
Yes. The design is intricate. And I'm just like, wow, how did you know that I was going to need that moment back in 2015 that was going to
Right.
work for me in 2025? Like,
Right.
you're thinking a decade ahead for me? That makes, like, that's crazy. So, yeah, I definitely agree.
That part. I only have a couple more questions. If you, I would love to hear a poem. If you want to share a poem, you don't have to, because I don't want, to. put that out there. I'm here for a conversation. But if you wanted to share a poem, I would not decline. Um,
Okay.
okay.
Put me on the spot. On
You
the spot.
don't have to. You don't have to. You don't have
Okay,
to.
okay. What?
Um,
Okay. Go ahead.
yeah. So let me ask you this: beyond poetry and education, what are some personal interests and passions that influence your work? That influence your work?
Well, definitely music. Music and prayer.
Mm,
That's very vague. Music because I love the free flowing nature. Like I love the journey of a song and how it slowly like invites you in and then it allows you to cruise through and it leaves you somewhere else. I'm very inspired by music and would love to pursue it, incorporate it somehow into my practice. And then also prayer, like just pressing into the unknown or pressing into um, the things that I fear, uh, asking for forgiveness, like that cycle of renewal. Like prayer has actually helped me a lot with my words and has been the driving force behind how I've been writing in this season of my life. So I feel like my latest poems have been prayers. And yeah, that really inspires me. What else? I love me some Issa Rae. I love
come on.
things that she puts her hands on. I just
Yes.
love her energy because she can't be boxed in, she can't be tamed, and I'm very inspired by her.
Yeah. I just watched her interview with Asia Wilson the other day. I played basketball in high school and college and after college. So I was really, yeah, I like her too. Yeah, and I agree with you that she's not boxed in. I apologize. Keep going.
No, 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 it's okay. She's just her. That's it.
Yeah,
She's
yeah, yeah.
and the last thing I'm inspired by is just like the living, like people's words. Sometimes a person could just say something, and I'm like, that's a poem. Oh my gosh. Like we could be having a conversation, and I'm just thinking about the thing that you just said, and a poem is formulating in my brain. So I'm really
Nice.
inspired by their people's words and their essence. Like, I like the way my fiance smiles at me, or
Yeah,
the feeling that I get when my mother walks in a room, like I'm like, how do I capture that? How do I capture the moment after my dad shares with me something that he's really proud about? I'm really
nice.
inspired by the mundane and people's auras.
Yeah, I like that. When I was teaching, I used to make my students think of a small moment
Hmm.
and make it bigger, right? But we started with these very small moments. Um, Sometimes it could be, what happened on the way to the store, to the corner store. Sometimes it could be, like you said, how it feels when your mom walks into a room. But
Yeah.
you're right about that. It can explode into something extremely bigger.
Hmm.
Those very small moments, and sometimes we bypass those small moments when they need us to pause and take a look. Sila.
Yeah. And that's what poetry reminds us to like focus, come back to your life, come back to living. You know what I mean? Like the world is snatching our attention and dividing us into so many different pieces, but poetry is like, you are alive, and this is this beautiful thing that just happened on the walk to the store, as you said. So we
Yeah,
on the same page.
very cool. Right. We are down to the last couple minutes of the interview, and these are our rapid questions, right? So the first thing that comes to your mind is what we want to hear. All right. All right.
Okay.
All right. What's your favorite sound?
My favorite sound?
Sound.
Silence. There we go. Oh, I love a chirping bird outside my window.
Nice. There you go. See? What's the easiest thing to love?
Okra, food.
Mm, mm, yes. What's the hardest lesson you've had to learn?
Hardest lesson I've had to learn. Um, I can't carry my parents' marriage, the pieces of their marriage.
That's good, right? And theirs don't have to look like yours.
Hmm.
It's completely different. Yeah, good stuff. Favorite place to sit down and get a literal and figurative meal.
And get a literal figurative.
Literal, a literal meal, like it's the place where you can sit down and get a great meal, something to eat, but also a figurative meal. Like where can you just go and be like, I was thoroughly fed and had absolutely no food at all.
My mama's table. My mother's kitchen at her table. I'm fed in all the ways,
There
always.
we go. There we go. That's what's up. Name an author you are reading now and why.
Reading now. Oh, I've been reading this journal for a very long time because I don't want it to end. It's Alice Walker's Gathering Blossoms Under Fire. I think that's the name. I probably botched it. But I've dragged out reading this book because I'm just really intrigued by just living in her day to day with her.
Mm,
Her experiences. The journal tracks like from when she was, I think, in college. It's like her first marriage, her having a child, before she
mm.
wrote The Color Purple, when it started to blow up, all of those things. I'm really inspired by and intrigued by a writer's journey and how they move through doubt and confidence and navigating the world publicly. So that's what I'm reading alongside other books.
Okay. Who's your favorite poet? Like what poets do you read? That's not one of the questions. This is a sidebar question.
Yeah. My favorite poet is Alicia Harris. She was a part of a group called the Strivers Row,
Yeah,
and I love her passion. I love how raw she is. I love how unafraid she is of her vulnerability, and that she knows how to use her language to communicate that to you. I really admire
I
that
love
about.
that. Very good. Name one thing you would tell your younger self.
Oh goodness. Hmm. Oh my gosh. This I don't even know where to start, girl. Lean into it and follow your gut. Your gut is not a hater. Your gut has your best interest in mind, Brittany.
That's what
So work in collaboration with your gut, with your instinct, because that is God, and that is how your spirit speaks to you and guides you.
is that part. Work in collaboration.
Hmm.
Whew. Mm. Oh. Mm. Yes. All right. The last question. One thing you want to tell your future self, and more so, the legacy of you, like your children and your children's children. What do you want them to know?
I would say stick with it and do not be afraid. Be courageous. And the same thing that I would tell my younger self, trust your gut, trust your spirit, and yeah, allow God to move and direct you.
Do you think you can teach children how to listen to their spirit?
Yeah, I think I can. I think I've started doing that, was doing that in the classroom. Um, I'm always talking about a quiet space. I'm always talking about removing distractions and trying to sift through, the debris or like the clutter to hear or to get to that person, that voice. So a lot of my workshops, a lot of the ways that I formulated conversations in the classroom and how I move now, even on stage, is encouraging for us to, you know, remove the excess so that we can get to the core, the source. I think I
Right.
could do it. It would take
Yeah.
some time.
No, very good. Thank you. Just tell the people what's happening for you next and how they can find you. And we're going to make sure that we are always keeping in touch because you are a gem and we have to have your voice.
Thank you. I receive. I'm really excited about two projects that I'm working on this year. One is a full collection of poetry, and it's about self recovery and all the things. I'll be sharing it soon. And the second is that I just received a grant from the New York City State Council of the Arts to produce a one-woman show. It's called Magic in the Middle, and it's about being in process and that road to producing this collection that will be coming out maybe next year. So I'm really excited about it.
As you should be. What's the name of your one woman show?
It's called Magic in the Middle.
Magic in the Middle. Very good. Very good. I love it. All right. And we'll make sure that the general public and everybody has your information. We're going to keep in touch with you and let us know when that is because I want to come. I want to come to your one woman show.
I would love to
Thank
have
you.
you.
I would definitely. Thank you so much for being on. In the beginning was the word and spoken word podcast. Give it up one time for Brittany Barker.
Thank you, Tasha. You're
Thank you,
amazing. You're
beautiful.
fabulous.
Thank you, beautiful.